Hey guys, it's Joey here, and I read Freakonomics for my 9 weeks project. So I'd like to start off with a little contrast I made up myself. So watch closely. Okay, so basically I want to make a contrast here between magicians and economists. Stephen Levitt says in his book that economists basically try to find the truth about the world, and they'll dive deep into whatever problem has been in the news or whatever, and they may see through whatever bullcrap that the media is putting out by simply looking at the different data points and evidence towards it, where most people would just look at what's obvious. An economist might see through the smoke and mirrors to see what's not obvious. Okay, next I'd like to illustrate an example he gave in his book. And now, I'm not claiming that any of these things are my ideas and that you should believe them. This is a highly controversial subject, but it's what was in the book. So, what he covered in the book, well, not entirely, but one thing he brings up in the beginning is the fact that in the 90s, there was a growing rate of violent crime, and everybody was predicting the end of the world, that there was going to be mass chaos, lawlessness, but in fact, the opposite happened. There was a decrease in crime, and people blamed better law enforcement and better policing techniques and gun laws, but Stephen Levitt believes that this can be traced back to Roe versus Wade, which is the legalization of abortion. So let's take this example of a teenage mother, which will be represented by this red ball here. She lives in a low-income area. The guy who got her pregnant is nowhere to be found, and 9 months later, she has a kid. So, this kid, he's being neglected, mistreated, and just overall, he doesn't feel like he's even there. And that's because the mom, irresponsible, immature, has no idea how to raise a child. And in the 20-some years it would take that child to grow to a mature adult, that is around the time that there was a decrease in crime. Because the people who would most likely get the abortions would most likely have the neglected children that would grow up to be more likely to commit a violent crime. So that could potentially, and as stated by Levitt, is the main reason for the crime drop in the 90s. Pugs, not drugs. And I'm going to relate this to economics. So, let's put this aside and take this out. So, for my example, since we're talking about Freakonomics, I'm going to give this weird example on how this is all going to work. And also, since it's economics, it's all money. Money, money, money. Okay, so let's say we see the general trend across the United States that more people are getting pugs. And this coincides with a drop in the use of drugs. Okay, so we would expect to see that the use of drugs because of pugs would decrease, but correlation does not always equal causation. So we need to test this out somehow. And one way to do that would be to take two American towns with the same kind of background. Let's say Jacksonville and Kingston. And these two basically exact same thing. They're both middle class, small areas, in general good people, not many crimes, violent or otherwise, until eventually they get mixed up with the wrong people. And by the wrong people, of course, I mean like drug cartels. So they come out of this with a big drug problem, which will be represented by a pile of needles. So you would expect to see, since they're the same area, the same thing is going to happen with them, except Jacksonville has a pug introduced into it. Or, well, pugs. And you would expect that if this merely correlates but doesn't cause a drop in drug use, that the amount of drugs would stay the same. But in reality, what we see is this. The drug use is dropping due to the introduction of pugs into the town, which would mean that pugs do indeed stop drug use. Now that I've given you a basic idea of what Freakonomics is, I'm going to leave you by making it rain Benjamins.